Hi guys, this video is an overview of the research project outcome. Now that you've finished your research, we should be moving right along. So just want to explain exactly what we're doing so that you can feel really confident with it. We'll be marking 3 performance standards. The specific features of those performance standards are your synthesis of knowledge, skills and ideas to produce a resolution to the research question. So I'll explain that as we're going along. Substantiation of the key findings relevant to the research project outcome, and your expression of ideas, so the way you say things and the correctness and conciseness that you say those things, how easily understandable it is to your audience. So when you're choosing how you're going to present your outcome, it's really important that you actually spend some time thinking about the text type you're going to create. It is really important that you consider the purpose of that text type, the structure, how it should actually be structured, and the language features for appropriate to your target audience. In talking about target audience, that's probably the place that you need to start. You need to find out who it is that you're going to tell this information to so that you can make sure that you're pitching it the right way. For instance, if you were creating a PowerPoint that was aimed at teens, the language that you would use would be very different than an essay that was targeted at a bunch of CEOs of a business. Okay? So the tone, the way you pitch that is really important, and you need to be really clear about that right from the start. So very important to know who is your target audience. The way that you can structure your text is as varied as you want it to be, okay? You don't have to do a report. In fact, in my class, I'll be encouraging you strongly not to do a report unless you have a specific purpose or a specific target audience that you want to pitch a report to. Otherwise, there are lots of ways that you could format your outcome, such as written results, conclusions, recommendations or solutions to a problem or a question, so that you're providing that to your audience. That could be in an essay, a report, a booklet, a brochure, a poster, an article. It can be a product, as in an artifact, a manufactured article or a work of art or literature, but it will need to produce a statement with it or a set of annotated photographs of the process as you are actually making that product. It could be a display or an exhibition with annotations. Again, you've got to be showing what you've learnt along the way, not just the product of what you learnt. Could be a multimedia presentation. So some people feel really confident using PowerPoint. Other people have got different apps that they like. It could be a podcast. If you're going to create any one of these different types of texts, you need to make sure that you're true to them. So a PowerPoint, for instance, should not have lots and lots of writing on the page. It should just be dot points of the main important facts, and your presentation actually fills in the blanks around those dot points. Whereas a report will have lots of words, obviously, but may be divided up with subheadings, and you may use your subtopics for that. An essay won't have the subheadings and subtopics within it. It'll just flow right the way through. You might have a performance which would be recorded with a supporting statement, for instance. You could have a combination of any of the above. You are not limited to a report, and I strongly recommend that unless you are an exceptional writer, that you don't choose a report style to present your findings. Could be annotated photographs set up as a booklet or a PowerPoint of the product that's been created. It could be a written history, could be an oral presentation, but it needs to have appropriate text referencing and a bibliography no matter what style it is that you choose to present your outcome in. So your outcome is a presentation of what you have learnt across your whole research project journey. You are demonstrating what the resolve is to your research project question. Now that you've finished your research, you should have come to a position or a stance or be able to say a conclusion, which is a response to your research question. Okay, so when you're starting your outcome, no matter what format you do it in, you should be stating what your question actually was, what you were hoping to find out, and how you did that. And then you would have a discussion throughout the whole outcome, and then that would actually lead you, and that may be broken up, by the way, into your subtopics. So we've got 4 subtopics for each of your research project questions. So then after your summary of what it was that you're researching and how, then you would discuss each of your subtopic answers, and then that would lead you to a conclusion which answers your overall big research project question. Okay, so there's some key words that you really need to understand what they mean. So we've got synthesize your key findings, your knowledge, your skills and ideas to produce a research outcome. This is one of the performance standards, okay? It's important that you understand that you are not just listing off one fact that you found here, then another fact, but you're actually meshing those facts together. You're discussing your comparison of those facts. You're talking about how they support each other or contrast with one another. You're explaining how that fact led you to understand the next fact. And you've got to put this discussion into a logical order that is easy for your reader to follow along with. That's what synthesizing your information means. Then you have to substantiate each of the points that you make. That is, you need to provide evidence and examples from your research to show how you have resolved the research question. The most obvious way of doing this is to do some in-text referencing, and that can be using Harvard, or it can be using footnoting, whatever form of referencing you are happy to use, but you need to make sure that you understand it really well, so you might have to research exactly how you do that, and that you put that properly structured well into your outcome, whatever format that may be. Okay? It's a really good idea to make sure that you use 2 or 3 sources to substantiate one point, because that demonstrates to the reader that you haven't just read the first thing and believed it, but you've backed it up by comparing it to another source and another source. You've verified it, making sure that you're very confident that that is a fact, because you've seen it by 3 other expert authors, for instance. Okay, so if you are doing research project A, your word limit for your outcome is 1500, or a 10-minute presentation or equivalent multimodal presentation. If you're doing RPB, then your word limit is 2000 words, or 12 minutes or thereabouts, or an equivalent. Okay, you can't go over those. SACE does have a right not to read past those points. You can go under, but remember, you can't really hit the performance standards at a high grade if you don't at least sort of meet around that mark. I'm really encouraging you to be creative with the way you present your findings. You will get so much more success out of it if you have a genuine target audience in mind, and if you really do think of them as you're presenting your information. The way you present your information is not about you, but is about how they will absorb the information and how they'll be able to unpack it and understand it. Okay, so reference the key findings from your research to your sources using in-text referencing or footnotes. Demonstrate the origin of the ideas and the thoughts that you share. So with the research project, it is a research project. The whole point of it is that you demonstrate that you've gone to lots of places, lots of different types of sources, not just the internet, not just interviews, not just documentaries, and actually reference them throughout your whole outcome so that you can show that you have collected a whole heap of people's ideas and knowledge, and you have then put them all together, and you can verify where you've got all of this information from. You're not expected to know everything that you're reporting on, but you are expected to be able to demonstrate where you found that information. If you don't, if you state any facts throughout your outcome and you do not reference them, it's plagiarism. Okay, and that is like walking into a store, grabbing a packet of cornflakes and walking out without paying them. It is stealing. It's stealing other people's ideas, and that's why it's such a big issue to make sure that you are referencing correctly and you're not stealing other people's ideas. So if you steal from one author, it's plagiarism. If you steal from many and you acknowledge those ideas, then it's research. Okay, so your best bet to get a really good solid understanding and foundation of where you want your starting point to be with your outcome is for you to have a look at some student exemplars. I've uploaded a whole heap of types onto our DayMap resources, and I've got some videos in there, I've got some reports in there. Some of them are using footnotes, some are using Harvard referencing. I've got an essay, I've got some videos of students talking about what they did to prepare their outcome. So please make sure you spend the time looking at those before just rushing into creating your own. There are more exemplars on the SACE website. At any time that you need any clarification, if I'm not available, you can go to the SACE website to the research project link from there, and you can find student exemplars, you can find information about exactly what's required of you at any time. So please make sure you spend an hour or two looking over those exemplars. Whilst we're talking about time, you'll notice that we are starting our outcome. We're only looking at the explanation halfway through week 7. We have only got until the end of this term to create your final draft of your outcome. It sounds like it's a long time away. It's about 5 weeks. 5 lessons per week, if we get them all, gives you about 18 to 20 hours of class time. You will find that time is going to fly. I cannot tell you strongly enough how organised you actually need to be to make sure that you can complete your research project outcome by the required dates. Okay, so we want a final outcome that I can give you feedback on, and you will finish off over the holidays, and then you will submit it in the first week of next term. This time is going to fly. So, here's my hints on your first steps to getting started on your outcome. Firstly, you need to decide, this is after you've had a look at the exemplars, you need to decide how you're going to present your findings. Strongly recommend that you don't choose a report unless you have exceptional written literacy skills. Then you need to have a conversation with me. You need to tell me what type of text type you're choosing, and you need to justify your choice. Make sure that you can clearly identify who your target audience is. I want to know who you're presenting this information to, so that when I'm drafting your work, I can imagine that I'm them and I can give you some really helpful feedback. I want you to ensure that you've considered how you will make the information accessible for your audience. So if you're catering to an audience of children, are you making sure that the language is accessible for them? Or have you used words that are too big? If you're catering to a group of doctors, how are you making sure that your language is sophisticated enough to cater to them and doesn't sound childlike, for instance? I want you to ensure that you've chosen a text type that suits your literacy strengths. If you do all of these things, you're setting yourself up for success. If you knowingly choose to do a written outcome, when you know that writing isn't your strength, you are already starting off on the back foot, and we don't really want that. We want this to be as easy and enjoyable and creative as you would like